We are now ready for the final video of connecting the modular pieces of the face to the skull, the helmet head. So we're adjusting all the edge loops. Not all the edge loops, but we're going back through and we're adjusting the main edge loops of the lips, eyes, nose, mouth, cheeks, kind of looking at those curves. I'm really looking at the reference now. I'm locked in on the shadows and where it's protruding and looking at it from many different angles. I'm constantly turning it side to side, not getting locked in too much from just a front view or purely side. And now after I played with that a little bit, it refreshed my brain and I can come back and look at this and say, okay, this is really easy from here, at least to the side right there. So I'm gonna maybe go in here and maybe do an N-gon poly split. So that's a pretty easy cut right there. And then we have one interchange right here. And I can decide, do I want to reduce it, the number of edge loops that flow down, or do I want to maintain it? So that's what I'm kind of struggling with right here from the side. So do I connect it over there and out to the side? The first pass, yes. And then the second one, and then the back one. So I'm thinking, maybe I could push these all back a little bit. And these big polygons on the side here, maybe these all need to curve back, flow more with the cheek outside. So I have more space to move these over. So spacing them out kind of saved me from making some bad decisions there and taking a break from that. There we go. That's pretty darn close to being done. That's looking good. I could see how the spacing of the polygons of the quads, where they're bigger and where they're smaller, where I can make some major adjustments and space them out a little bit, and we'll be just fine. So that's got to come make some more space there. So I got that weird polygon at the bottom. And so, do I fill it? Do I just cut it around? Do I use target weld? How do we deal with it? So first off, I'm going to start off with bridge. Still have some weird triangles in there. And now I'm just going to get rid of, but that gives me some space to cut the edge and still leave the polygon. And so if I can fill the whole thing and then recut it, that's what quad draw lets you do. But this lets me finish this ring, this edge loop around the bottom of the face here. And as I come down to the side over here, I go, well, maybe I will need an extra edge loop running alongside of the back of the jaw across there. So let's see what we do with the final one here. But I need that jawline to be firm, so I need the extra edge loops down around the bottom of the jawline. But along the side here, I don't know. There we go. So I cut it down, bring it up, and there we go. So we have an N-gon over there, and we have a quad to fill there. So 1, 2, and buckle my shoe. No. There's the quad, and we have a 5-star there and a 3-star. So I'm not too excited about that. I need to continue several edge loops back into the skull. So there's one along the jaw down below. There's another one along the cheek and another one up around the temple. So I'm looking at this and thinking, how can we fix this still? So I'm going to bring these pieces here and I think I'm just going to delete them now, bring it down some. Yeah, I'm going to continue that jawline along the bottom. And see, there's a lot of zigzags in there, so I end up smoothing that out. There it goes. And then right there, underneath the chin, underneath the jaw, excuse me, the edge of the jaw, like right there, that's going to cut through those long quads better as we go along the side here. So let's see how we finish this thing off. Here we go, all the way back from the face mask to the skull. Or do we discontinue that and run the edge loop up the jawline? Let's find out. I recorded this a bit ago, so finally doing the voiceover is like, oh yeah, what did I do? So let's get rid of these guys here, and maybe we continue that underneath the jaw, underneath the chin. Take a look at it here. The quads up above, oh, look at that, just scaled them right together. Yeah, that is going to work. So let's cut that first, and then switch to vertex mode, or just delete it, switch to vertex mode and target weld. So bringing them together too, and then rounding it out. Yes, nice, perfect. So we do have a 5-star there, but that's about the right spot you want to have it. And then let's back all these up, make some more room. with the quads. It's a bit of a bigger quad, but you know, once we relax it and space them out, I think that's flowing pretty well. And I was working at regular speed there, so I just backed it up a minute and just wanted to show that again. And I put it, it's now up to 150 again. So I wish I was a little bit better communicating. There we go. Just scaling and look at that. It's like having the big open end gun and then just creating the cut, leaving an open triangle next to an end gun, and then target welding together. That worked pretty good. There's a little bit of a diamond shape there, but that's okay. So yeah, this is now at 150%. So it's slightly faster than what I was moving before. So I want to get to the finish line with this last video. There we go. So now I turn on quad draw, hold down shift, and just left mouse button press, and it just evens. All your problems go away. Down shift, look at that. It just spreads them out. So nice. That's a relax. We used to have what's called a relax modifier in 3D Studio Max, so I might slip and say relax modifier. Still don't like that diamond right there. So I'm looking at that and going, can I do the same thing I just did in the cheek and scale those together? Or was it better the way it was before? I think that's probably going to work, and I can redistribute some of the edge loop cuts. Let's see. So now I'm fine tuning. I'm going back and finding my troubled areas. So target weld that together, bring it around. I do like that better. There's a bit of an extreme diamond there in between two edge loops that were flowing. Yeah, check it out from the front view. Is there anything off? Edge loops flowing around the jawline much better, so I can kind of play around with the actual. Now we can push the anatomy. The edge loops are mostly done. There's still some you'll find your n-gons, or you have use a soft select. Now we get to soft select. Now we can push some nice gentle anatomy fixes without having to cut edge loops anymore or worry about bad edge loop flow. So now we can really use, and this is what I do in the sculpting program. So the soft select tool works a lot like the grab or move topological brushes in your 3D sculpting. So if you're using Sculptress or SculptGL or ZBrush or even Blender, I don't know what the move brush is called in Blender, but you're just grabbing with a nice big fall off soft selection. You're grabbing and moving around. Also using the slide edge tool. So now I'm getting back to flow again. So I just kind of push that jawline for a moment. And I'm using the slide edge tool, which will hold the silhouette, which won't change the form too much. And I'm redistributing the flow of the edge loops so that I can finish those final cuts. So there's some cuts to do at the jawline. So I have that end gone right there. That should finish underneath the chin. In order to do that, cut across there. Oh, redistributing. Look at that. I'm cutting it across the other way. Yes, that is way smarter. And then go back to vertex mode and push those back a little bit. Yeah. Good decision, Professor. Just pushing them back a little bit. There we go. And there's still an n-gon there, and there's a triangle there. If there's an n-gon next to a triangle, we know the golden rule. You can usually redo the topology flow to create two quads. But I think for this one, we're just going to delete that edge and continue that edge loop. And continue to space them around, continue to soften the arc, soften the arc, soften the arc. Look at every edge loop from the angle, spin around your model and make sure that there isn't any weird peaks and valleys. And trying to figure out, okay, underneath that throat there, it's pretty low poly underneath the chin, right? Underneath the jawline to the neck. So I think for now, I'm going to leave that and maybe look at finishing the flow back into the skull. This back of the skull still looks really odd, I understand, but we're going to come back to that in a little bit. And kind of taking a look at it still from every angle, bottom up from the side, curving it to the side view, more of a profile, and decided that, there we go, reduce instead. So let's see that again. Go back to the side and look at it from right there. So if we just connect that bottom vertex, that's an n-gon, to the other vertex, the problem is solved. So just target welding it to the right spot from right there. target weld from there to there. Easy fix, right? So target weld continuing is going to give us a nice diagonal across there, and that solution presented itself. You want the edge loop to flow from the jaw all the way up the side of the skull to the top, and now we have really completed the face. It's just cleanup. And how you finish these edge loops as they go back into the skull, that's a nice edge loop flow. It goes all the way around. That's the mask of the face around. The little orange is a little bit hard to see. We had a different color for that, but that is your face cap. That's your face edge loop that's going to connect to your, if you wanted to do the face off, face off. If you wanted to do a Nick Cage voice and do face off, um, that would be your edge loop to cut that off and then add another face. So you could have your whole set of faces. And if you were doing a stop motion puppet and you wanted to take the faces off, that would be another good spot to take the face off, use their heavy earth magnets and cut. So you see I'm looking at this here. Can I redistribute that better? Bring it back on the side. I think some of these last decisions, I was just so excited to be done with the dang thing, and that I maybe didn't do the best. There's a bulge right there. There's a peak and a valley. So go to the side view, quarter turn view, profile, checking that. So it's in the turn, as we say, figure sculpting, like you turn the model and look and try to match the silhouette at each degree of the turn angle, making sure that the arc curves gently and there's not a sudden peak, there's not a sudden spike or sudden valley. Looking at the flow of the eyelid around the eyeball itself, and I decided that I had my eyeballs too fall forward, and that the actual eye sockets themselves needed to be the eyeball itself needed to be brought back, and then the eyelids needed to be thickened, but that they should be brought back into the fold to create more of an eyelid, to let the lacrimal gland, that's the soft tissue above the outer part of the eye, upper eye, right? That where the tear duct, where the tears are produced from the lacrimal glands. There's an actual gland up there in the top. And then just grab an edge, Control Shift, and then double click so it does the edge. It loops the faces around, so you can see that has a nice flow. Hit 3 on the keyboard, soften it, give it a look. Again, it's orthographic, so it's going to look a little funny without the barrel distortion of the lens. And checking the curve of that lip against the reference, maybe come up and out just a little bit. And for these ones, maybe come down and maybe look at it more from the side view again, and they can protrude forward, making sure that curves forward nicely. There we go. Yes, that's catching light. And you can see the light hit the surface. You can see the form, the accuracy now of the pushing and pulling becomes, with the edge of the flow good, this part is kind of relaxing. It's the fun part. It's the payoff at the end. We're doing the anatomy, going back from faceted, again, our low poly version to smoothing, and looking at the fold and nasolabia back around the back, the side of the nostril. So looking at the shadow of the more abstract chiseled form on the reference that you see, and seeing where the light's catching those edge loop lines, and going back into the corner of the eye socket where the tear duct is. And I still have 2 triangles there, but the tear duct is literally the smallest part of this whole form, so definitely saved it for last, right? Like, let's get all the big stuff done. And let's zoom in there nice and tight, and let's fix that tear duct and make sure it's all quads later. So all of the hard rules of having, 12-sided rings around the eye or 16-sided around the mouth, like all that stuff at the very, very end, you are now given freedom to make changes based on what's best for the model and the form. So I'm really looking at that sharp edge on the abstract form of the cheek as it comes up to the bone, pulling it out, pushing it back in, bringing it up, and looking at where that shadow is catching the light, and then bringing the rest of these arc flows up or out, making sure there's a softness to it. And I can see there's a little bit of a flatness in there. I don't know if I grab that vertex and kind of fix it yet, but there's a little indentation there that I just saw. But that's easy to catch. And again, the sculpting portion of this will take it'll really bring some softness and roundness to these shapes. That neck's really bugging me, but I haven't gotten down to the neck yet. It's this from the perspective view, so it's not perfectly sided. I think the eyes are still protruding too much. So they should be set. The eye socket, the whole section should be brought back in. So yeah, I'm looking at how this is going to connect these last few edge loops, how they're going to flow up into the temple, up to the top of the skull, side of the skull. And these are okay, so go around and to a ring, connect them back along the side, and then do end-gone poly split 1, end-gone poly split 2, and then relax that triangle out. There we go. So yeah, doing it in a matched pair like that's a good way to terminate the detail so it doesn't run all the way back into the carrier. There we go. Finally fixing that dang neck. I mean, it was really, really too wide. And it should be in the side view as well doing this, but without the reference image. There we go. It's a little bit more of a side angle with perspective, and then that. There we go. Finally, it's more feminine neck. She had like a giant, thick neck from the side view for most of this video. So it's really bothered me having to look at it this whole time. There it goes. It's almost looking like the reference now. I think the field of view angle is a little different. It's hard to get an exact match when your field of view doesn't match the photo, and that just comes with practice. And I still don't have it perfect. Like doing a perfect likeness is an art form unto itself. I'm less concerned with photorealism though than stylized, like fun artistic expression. I think just do a 3D scan of somebody and then do a topo like this. Take your base mesh and snap it to the scan, and you get the good topology flow. If you need to do a replication of someone, there's free photo, there's free digital or 3D scanning to turn someone's photos into digital 3D model. There we go. So I'm going back up. Same thing. There's a pair. Come to the top. Click. Yeah, I wasn't too pleased with this, but when I do the hair, I'll come back to it. It's a scalp. Whatever. It's the up in the hairline. No one's going to see it really. And when you smooth it, it's going to fade out pretty quickly. But I think we are just about done. Let's see how that looks. Zoom in a little bit. Yeah, I think so. It's a big quad there in the top middle. I mean, that's a big quad. It's a little too much. So let's continue that up maybe. There we go. And then back to the middle of the head and do the end-gone poly split at the top center instead. And then just even that out. There we go. I like that better. And then those long sliver quads up in the middle, I could continue them around. They're longer than a 2-to-1 ratio. So like I said, I don't really like that. But I think at the end of this, I was just tired, wanted to just be done with this dang thing. So I think adding an edge loop in there for the skull will be the right thing to do. And so, yeah, I think I took a break from it for a minute, just like, what am I doing? It was getting bad. So that's when you take a break, take a breather from it, come back and finish this thing up. But once I have this, I'm going to turn this into a male head and, do older, younger, more warrior-like, more intellectual, more feminine, more masculine, something in between. You do transhumanist study, whatever, floats your boat. Explore, have fun with it. I'm trying to get that ridge. Now I'm really looking at the shadow ridge lines, so I'm playing with the anatomy now, which will help me decide if I want to do anything else with the skull. They're pushing, those are kind of pushed down, so those all definitely need the arc flow. There we go, get that arc. And even more than that, I think there's a lot of straight lines on this model. That shouldn't be there if they were done early on and just need to have that curved out somewhere. So we're in the final few minutes of this, about 6-7 minutes left. But yeah, slide edge. So redistributing those up. And sometimes you can grab more than you need, let go, slide it up, let go, slide it up. And then that gives you the arc that you need. Or switch from edge mode back over to vertex mode whenever you need to. I could probably add an extra edge loop there in the forehead if they're that long of slivers. Like we don't need to be that low poly, we're on that low poly of a budget. But for again, that I can go back to and redistribute those later. There we go. If you hold control while doing the slide edge, it actually brings out the silhouette. That was something I didn't know before. I think I discovered that by accident. But yeah, these need to curve better. And so I'm futzing with this a little because I didn't add an extra. There needs to be an extra edge loop in there really to do this right. So I'm kind of making sure those all flow a little bit better. So I'll maybe skip ahead to spare you. So I push those up as well. And then now here we go. So I wanted to get to the corner of the eye. So there's two triangles, triangle there, and a triangle at this corner of the tear duct. So let's just finish that multi-cut across. There, they're all quads. And then one more there, and then just get rid of the one in the middle. Control backspace. It's hard to get that little tear duct. Get it in there. Zoom in. There's all quads. Yeah, so two triangles each side. I should have done that a long time ago. And now I can kind of even these out. But the tear duct is pretty large. If you look at it on the reference, it's a good chunk of the circumference around the eyeball. And so I think even on your lowest polyform like this is pretty low poly. Having a tear duct in there helps. So I'm looking at it from the bottom up, curved angles, looking at the chin, looking at that shadow on the chin. There's still some more to do there. So continuing the last of the edge loops underneath the chin, making sure the bony protrusion curves down nicely, making sure there's a little upward arc on the upper portion of the chin, and then making sure that that curves downward in the lower arc. There we go. Making sure looking at it from every angle, making sure those arcs are going. So there's a little peak valley. Got to make sure the peaks and valleys happen. There we go. Shouldn't be a point, but one arc flows one direction when they come together to the other direction. And I almost could put an extra edge loop in there, the pointedness of the chin. But now, work with what you got. Try to resist the urge, or not try, but do resist the urge to add more detail because you don't really need it. So I'm getting in that flesh where the muscles are that really do a lot of the heavy lifting, moving the expression and the speech of the lower lip. I'm bringing these in, looking at the jawline some more from the bottom up view, looking at my skull reference I have over on the side here. Because we don't have a bottom up or top down view of this sculpture, you don't have that information, so you kind of just trust your reference on that. And make sure the throat, make sure the end-on poly split where you reduce some of the detail underneath the chin stops there. And then we're getting into the actual jawline itself. So now we want to define that jawline. So the jawline into the skull is one of the last important details, I think, of this that's outside the modular pieces. So making sure that the jawline is accurate and flows up into the ear. Looking from the top down, the egg shape of the skull is way wacky. So at a certain point, we have to turn off the reference of the front view and just really focus on the skull being correct based on what the edge loops we have now flowing. So I'm double checking if we have any more edge loops to flow in there, and looked okay at a quick glance. So I'll come back to the tear duct. So I'll bring that in. You want to make sure it touches the eyeball. So bring it so it just touches, and switch to vertex mode, grab the vertex, and you could snap it to the surface, but I'm just eyeballing it. Haha. For now, we're eyeballing this model for sure. There we go. So grab these, and you want to define that tear duct. So giving it some depth, has a lot of thickness to it. Get too crazy, but there is quite a bit of depth to that tear duct, and kind of exaggerating it a little bit. So as we smooth it, it's going to collapse down a little. So I'm just kind of exaggerating it maybe a little bit more than it needs to. You can see how that fold on the reference, the flesh comes almost over the front of the tear duct towards the bridge of the nose. So that quad's pretty thin. It's a little quad in between the tear duct and the bridge of the nose. And then the one next to it's a bit wider of a quad. So I think I go back and move that. There we go. Make sure there's all the eyelid portion, the thickness, make sure the inside's touching the eyeball as much as possible. And then make sure we're pushing in the separation from the lacrimal gland and the brow and the eyelid itself, because the upper eyelid's going to do most of the moving and animation. It's the upper eyelid that blinks. The lower eyelid barely moves when you blink. It's more, it crunches up when you do expressions. And getting that outer fold is another area where we could add some detail, but that arc flow's got to be right. So I'm distributing this a bit more, and I had a few different variations on how to finish that up. that we'll look at maybe when we do the detail and the UV mapping. So I'm looking at from the bottom up, again, the eyelids kind of pushing through the eyeball, so making sure it's rounded enough, and then the edge loop above it, there you go, just look at that vertex is pushing way in, so maybe bring it up and forward some more, and then same thing with the ones next to it, making sure that there's a softness there. Still a little bony. From the bottom up, it's a little bit of a 90-degree turn as it goes around there. So just keep looking at it from the top, from the bottom up and top down until all these curves, like look how zigzaggy that is. That's your peaks and valleys, what you don't want. And all those peaks and valleys have to be corrected to get this completed right. And we are down to the last 2 minutes or so of this. So congratulations if you made it this far. You should have a great base mesh to work with for all of your future characters. And you constantly improve on these edge loops. You constantly look at ways to make the flow better. Anatomy is lifelong learning for sure. I'm still learning, going on 20 plus years and still figuring out how to depict a curvature of the flesh or bone better. And I think live model figure drawing, live model figure sculpture is key. Studying form on a flat screen or from a book is no substitute for the real thing. So get away from your computers, go to your live model figure drawing, support your local models guild. In the Bay Area, we have two that are really old. I think they've been around, oh man, I don't know, I want to say 60, 70 years. Like really, it's a good tradition to go to. And if you can go to a modeling figure drawing marathon, go to a figure drawing marathon, and they'll have it's an all day event usually. Start early in the morning, like 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. And you usually have different stages. We used to have them up here at Merritt College in the East Bay Hills. Palo Alto used to do them. There's the Bay Area Models Guild, Palo Alto, or San Francisco Models Guild, and just finishing that up and making sure that it looks okay without the wire. So just the shadow alone, you can see it's still a bit amorphous. And so going into the faceted mode here, I can grab all the faces, and I'm still working on the brow a little bit, and then we'll get rid of the faceted look and smooth them all out. But yeah, I want that brow tightened up. So this is where we can use the crease tool. So go to tools, crease tool, middle mouse drag to really sharpen that edge up. So now if I smooth the model, you'll see it's actually holding that edge. See that nice shadow? That's such a nice tool. There you go. So even if it's smooth there's that 5-star intersection. You see it creates a little dash there, but it is really holding the form better now. And that's all we have.